A few weeks ago I reviewed the 2002 U.S. printed New American Standard Bible side column, the SCR, the side column reference Bible. Today I'd like to take a look at the most recent edition, the 2017 printing from China. It's this book here, but let me first show you the box. Here's the ISBN. And this is the style, the 863W. Later in the video I will compare the Bible and contrast it with the previous version or edition, the 863. And here's the ISBN on the 863. In preparing to make this video, I did a Google search for this ISBN, and now I wish I had bought multiple copies because they are selling for quite a lot. I think the reason for why they're selling now will become more apparent as we go through the review. This is the latest edition. The 863W replaced the 863. It's a rather large Bible in black genuine leather with paste down liner, presentation pages, glossy sort of in-sheet type things, and then it has this paper. The paper looks blue. I don't know if the blue hue is coming across to you on the camera. I hope you can see it. It's very blue through here. Let me show you the show through by showing you New American Standard through the paper. It does have considerable ghosting. You can read reference edition almost as well through the paper as you could by looking directly at the sheet. The Bible comes with a single ribbon marker, which I forgot to show you, and the normal yellow jacket style headbands. One black ribbon marker, 1/4 of an inch wide. It's Smythe sewn. The dimensions are slightly different from the dimensions in the old 2002 SCR, and for the benefit of those of you who haven't watched that video or another video in the 2002 SCR, let me tell you the dimensions on this book. Height-wise, it is about 9 11/16 inches tall. In terms of width, it's about 6 7/8 of an inch, and I measure the thickness to be about 1 5/8 inches thick. I also measured the sheet thickness, and each sheet here, not counting the glossy end sheets, but each sheet here is about 33 microns, 33 micrometers thick. I looked at print non-uniformity. There seems to be minimal. It seems to be printed fairly evenly throughout. I looked at the page glossiness. We'll see if we can demonstrate page glossiness here. There is some slight sheen to it, but not very much. So it's not a very glossy paper at all. It is definitely blue. I heard someone on a video say that it's not actually blue, it's so white that it looks blue. The definition of white kind of makes that impossible. Alright, so Old Testament spans 1,344 pages, just like in the older editions. You get to page 1344, you're at the end of the Old Testament. The New Testament runs for 405 pages. You have, after the New Testament, you have a 3-column concordance with a lot of entries. I haven't counted them. I don't know how many there are. One thing to note about this layout, which we'll talk about a little bit more in detail about later, is that the books of the Bible do not always start on their own page. They do some of the time. Some of the books do, and most of them don't. I think you'll see in the Old Testament, Genesis, of course, and then Exodus Leviticus and maybe Numbers do, and in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts do, as does Romans. But 1 Corinthians, if I recall correctly, starts in the middle of the page. It also has maps after the Concordance. They're on a glossy paper. Some people don't like glossy paper because they damage them. I've never had any issues with damaging the glossy paper. But I'm just a reader. I'm not someone who takes this and swings it around behind a pulpit. Right, so here we are at the end of Philippians and the beginning of Colossians, and I just wanted to show the page layout. You have a kind of a narrow inner margin, and then the text block, verse by verse layout, single column, divided by a line from the references, and then an outer margin in which you can write your notes. And it's kind of a neat layout. I think it would have been better had they done like the ESV, single column reference Bible, and put the references at the gutter. I've seen people on videos complain about that, but it strikes me that if you have to have anything near the gutter where the page is bending, you would prefer to have the references, which are man-made, rather than the Word of God. Here is another instance where a book of the Bible does not start on its own page. Book titles are in the outer corner, and page numbers are in the outer corner. Margins are 15.5 millimeters at the top. From the top, say, of a capital letter to the edge of the paper is about 15.5 millimeters. At the bottom, it's about 13 millimeters. The inner margin is at best 14 millimeters, and the outer margin from the line here to the edge of the page is 54 millimeters. From the edge of the references, where you see the darkness from the opposite page, from the page on the other side, to the edge of the page is 27 millimeters. So that's 2.13 inches here, and that's 1.06 inches there. The font is about 11 points. It's advertised as 11 points, and my measurement is that it's about equivalent to a 11 point Times New Roman font. In the references here, the font size is about 7 point. Characters per line is about 62, so that's not really very bad. Line spacing is somewhat cramped, and I've shown that in another video by looking at Genesis. We'll just see if we see anything here that indicates we might have some difficulty. If you look here, for instance, at the distance between the top of this H and the bottom, the descender here from this P, you get a sense that there really isn't a lot of space between the lines, so you have kind of a claustrophobic feeling there. But you also have considerable distance between the letters. That causes eye strain on me, at least, when the printers decide to be very aggressive with the tracking and squeeze them in next to each other. So one aspect is a little bit constraining, and the other one is relaxing. It's not a very bad design at all. One other thing I'd like to point out is that the headings, such as here, are sometimes quite cramped as well. And in the old days before the 95 update, and this is a 95 update, they put all those running headings at the top of the page, and they didn't have to worry about making room for them. And then in 95 they squeezed them into the text to be more modern and up to date. Before writing in the Bible, I tested both a Micron 005, that's the archival ink pen with the 0.2 millimeter line, and a Zebra F402. When I did the test, it seemed to me that the Zebra had less show-through than the Micron, so I tried using the Zebra, but I found that the tip seemed to stick and the ink didn't always flow, so sometimes I was writing over letters twice. So I tried an older Micron pen, and that's what you see written here. I think it's done quite well. You can see here the show through from a Zebra onto the other side, and I think there's a spot here where it actually made it through, or at least it's beginning to make it through the paper. If we turn to the opposite page and you look at the show through from the Micron, I don't think that's very bad at all. So an older, drier Micron probably is the best way to write in this Bible. Here's the show through issue and the print. This is newer paper that they're using, a different paper that they're using here on the recent edition, the 863W, that they did not use on the previous edition, 863. And I know 863's prices are going up because it's out of print, but I suspect it's in demand because people would prefer to have the older paper. I don't know how bad this looks on the video, so I'll give it a try here and try to show you how bad this is through here. It's a combination here of factors that's at work. You have the print, which is black, is not quite as bold as it was in the previous edition, but then somehow, even though there's less ink, or appears to be less ink here on the type, more ink seems to be showing through from the other side. You can clearly read the word kings, K-I-N-G' here, as by the kings. So you can see through this very well, and the typeface is not very dark. Now I will show you, try to slip these past each other, the 863 in the same spot. And you actually have, on this older peachy creamy kind of paper, you have a darker print and you have less show through here. You can still read by the kings, but it's more subdued here by the kings. So I prepared a still photo just in case this didn't come across in the video, and I should be showing it about now. On the left is the 863, and on the right is the 863W, and I think you can see in a number of spots where it's pretty clear that the 863 is a superior print. If you look to the left of the page, just above the 1, you can see some darker words showing through on the right than on the left. If you look near that large 1, just to the right of it, the capital K is much darker on the right than it is on the left. And then in the older 863 with the peach cream type paper, you can see that the letters are darker. I think the ink simply, the paper just simply took the ink better on the surface, but then doesn't show it through as much to the other side. It's like they chose the worst of all possible worlds when they changed the paper. Now I'm in Genesis, the 4th chapter, 23rd verse or thereabouts, and I'm going to try to do a side-by-side comparison, which is a bit tricky because there's so much space out in the outer margins of these Bibles. But since I have the wide margin 863W here on my stand, I will try to put the 863, which is a narrower margin, over the top of it so that you can see them side by side and get a sense for the difference in the show through in the print. Although the 863 on the right does have considerable show through, it has never bothered me. It may be because the paper is a good color, it may be because the print, and I think this is more likely because the print is dark and the show through is less, but this is pleasant to me. In fact, I've compared this Bible favorably to some other ones. The one on the left, though, is not very good. It's hard on the eyes. I have found that it's a little better in sunlight, and I think one of the other reviewers mentioned that. Sunlight works better than artificial light. Now I'm going to try to do the same comparison here in Revelation 21. Maybe a bit harder to put them on the same plane because you have the concordance and the maps behind the page. So the 863, the older edition, will be sitting higher than the 863W. So the older edition on the creamy paper here, the newer one on the blue there. And just in case this doesn't come across well on the video, I prepared another still photo. So here you should be seeing them side by side. If you look at the gap in the text above where it says the new, I think that gives you a good feeling here for what the difference is in the show through. If you look to the left, on the right, look to the left of the new, you see all the noise coming through from the other side, and it's just harder to ignore. Look at the word lamb. Look at lamb on the left and then lamb on the right, and see how much harder that is on the eyes. You have simply a lot more show through and a less bold font. Is there anything you can do for this Bible? If you'd like me, got it and you thought, well, maybe I can use this, and you wrote in it so that you can't return it anymore, is there any hope for it? Well, I found that if you read it in natural sunlight, the show-through isn't really that bad of an issue. It's not that hard on the eyes to read for some unknown reason. I've also found that it's better to have the lamp behind you than it is to have it along the same distance from your eyes as the page. So the way I have this set up now, I have the lamp kind of to one side of the book, and that doesn't work as well. The strain on the eye is decreased if you move the lamp back behind your shoulder. Another option is to move the lamp kind of forward so that the light moves at an oblique angle. It comes in along the page rather than towards the page. Finally, you could do this. This is black construction paper, and I think you should be able to see that actually helps quite a lot. So if you're not turning pages, and maybe maybe Michael sells a black paper that's more flexible than construction paper, but wouldn't tear like a tissue paper does, that would probably work better than this construction paper, because the construction paper tends to hold the page up. I actually have to physically hold it down. But look how much better that is. Just one sheet of black paper behind the page really does a world of good for this Bible. It's a mystery. What am I trying to say here? First, don't let anybody tell you the paper isn't blue. It's blue. It has a blue tinge to it at any rate. Secondly, unless you're impervious to having a bright paper with characters that aren't dark enough, but yet somehow transmit intensely to the other side of the page so that you have a lot of ghosting, I would not buy this Bible. I would not recommend it. On the other hand, if those things are not important to you, I would say that the Bible feels very well made. The leather, though not especially flexible, feels sturdy and somewhat thick. Bible experts seem to like this curvature in the spine, which is reflected in the curvature of the pages, and I can see the advantage of that. That way this spine leather doesn't get dimpled, crimpled, and creased as you open and close the Bible. It does have nice art gilding on it, and so if you can read this kind of text, it doesn't bother you, or if you're just interested in a decorative Bible to have lying about the house, then I recommend that you buy it. Otherwise, stay away from this book.